Good morning, class. This morning I have a fun book for you called Hermit the Crab. It's by one of our favorite authors, Eric Carle. He also wrote The Very Hungry Caterpillar. This book is a house for hermit crab. So there's a few things that I want you to look and listen for. I'd like you to listen for what Hermit's house is, why he has to move, and what friends he makes, and how they all help each other. Here we go. And you'll remember from other Eric Carle books that we've read that he has very colorful illustrations that look like they've been painted. And here's a picture of Hermit, and you might have guessed already what kind of a house he has on his back. You'll see here it looks like it's been finger painted, and it's got all kinds of blues and greens that make it look like the ocean. And where the finger has made scrawls, little squiggly lines in the paint, it looks like the waves in the water. So that's some pretty interesting artwork. Eric Carle wrote this book for his son, Rolf, to teach his son about hermit crabs. And this is what he says. Hermit crabs live on the ocean floor. Their skin is hard except for their abdomen. And their abdomen is their stomach or their tummy, and it is soft. To protect this soft spot, the hermit crab borrows a shell and makes it his house. Then only its face, feet, and claws stick out of the shell. That way it can see, walk, and catch its food. When a hermit crab is threatened, it withdraws into its shell until the danger has passed. Do you feel safe in your home? It keeps you warm and cozy with your family? Well, Hermit feels safe inside his shell, and that's his home. Time to move, said Hermit Crab one day in January. I've grown too big for this little shell. He had felt safe and snug in his shell, but now it was too snug. Have you ever had a pair of shoes that were your favorite shoes, but they were starting to feel a little snug and you needed some new ones? Well, Hermit needed a new shell. He needed a new home. Hermit Crab stepped out of the shell and onto the floor of the ocean. But it was frightening out in the open sea without a shell to hide in. What if a big fish comes along and attacks me, he thought. I must find a new house soon. So there's Hermit gingerly coming out of his shell, and here's some colorful fish swimming by. Do you think they're friendly fish? Sometimes when we need to do something new, like move or meet new people, you might feel a little frightened, and I think Hermit was feeling a little bit frightened. Early in February, Hermit Crab found just the house he was looking for. It was a big shell and strong. He moved right in, wiggling and waggling about inside to see how it felt. It felt just right. So there's his new, bigger home. But, he said, it looks kind of plain. I wonder how he's going to make it beautiful. In March, Hermit Crab met some sea anemones. They swayed gently back and forth in the water. How beautiful you are, said Hermit Crab. Would one of you be willing to come and live in my house? It's so plain, it needs you. I'll come, whispered a small sea anemone. Gently, Hermit Crab picked it up with his claw and put it on his shell. So there he is picking up the sea anemone to put it on the back of his shell to make it look beautiful. In April, Hermit Crab passed a flock of starfish moving slowly along the sea floor. How handsome you are, said Hermit Crab. Would one of you be willing to decorate my house? I would, signaled a little sea star. Carefully, Hermit Crab picked it up with his claw and put it on his house. So his house is starting to look quite beautiful. There's the sea stars. And here's his house, his shell, with the sea anemone and the sea star. In May, Hermit Crab discovered some coral. They were hard and they didn't move. How pretty you are, said Hermit Crab. Would one of you be willing to help make my house more beautiful? I would, creaked a crusty coral. Gingerly, Hermit Crab picked it up with his claw and placed it on his shell. So there's the hard coral. It doesn't sway back and forth like the sea anemone did, but it's beautiful. In June, Hermit Crab came to a group of snails crawling on a rock on the ocean floor. They grazed as they went. That means they were eating little bits of things, picking up algae and bits of debris, and leaving a neat path behind them. How tidy and hard-working you are, said Hermit Crab. Would one of you be willing to come and help clean my house? So now he has it decorated, and now he's looking for a friend to help him keep it clean. I would, offered one of the snails. Happily, Hermit Crab picked it up with his claw and placed it on his shell. He's getting quite a few friends that live at his house. There's his decorated shell, and here's the snails swimming, crawling on the ocean floor, eating little bits of debris. In July, Hermit Crab came upon several sea urchins. They had sharp, prickly needles. How fierce you look, said Hermit Crab. Would one of you be willing to protect my house? I would, answered a spiky sea urchin. Gratefully, Hermit Crab picked him up with his claw and placed it near his shell. So now he has his place decorated, it's clean, and now he wants a guard to protect his house. And those sea urchins look pretty fierce. I think they'd make good guards. In August, Hermit Crab and his friends wandered into a forest of seaweed. It's so dark here, thought Hermit Crab. How dim it is, murmured the sea anemone. How gloomy it is, whispered the starfish. How murky it is, complained the coral. I can't see, said the snail. It's like nighttime, cried the sea urchin. There's Hermit with his friends, and they're wandering gingerly into the scary dark forest of seaweed. In September, Hermit Crab spotted a school of lanternfish darting through the dark water. Do you remember we talked about lanternfish when we were talking about sea creatures last week? What's special about them? That's right, we can tell by their name. They have their own special lights or lanterns, and some of them have them dangling from their nose. Because usually they're under the water quite a ways down, and we know that it gets darker the farther you would go down, and so they need to have their own lights. How bright you are, said Hermit Crab. Would one of you be willing to light up our house? I would, replied one lanternfish, and it swam over near the shell. So now, even when they're in the seaweed, they have a lantern. Isn't it nice the way each one of the sea creatures is helping each other out with the special things that they can do that no one else can do? Their own special gifts, and they're sharing them. In October, Hermit Crab approached a pile of smooth pebbles. How sturdy you are, said Hermit Crab. Would you mind if I rearranged you? Not at all, answered the pebbles. Hermit Crab picked them up one by one with his claw and built a wall all around his shell. Now my house is perfect, cheered Hermit the Crab. Have you seen homes with fences around their front yards or their backyards? And do you remember when we read Roxaboxen and the children picked up pebbles and stones to make walls around their playhouses? Well, now let's see. Hermit has his home decorated. He has it clean and protected and well lit. And because each one of these creatures is good at something different, and they're all sharing their gifts, he also has a whole bunch of new friends. But in November, Hermit Crab felt that his shell seemed a bit too small. Oh no, it was just perfect, and now it's starting to feel too small again. Little by little, over the year, Hermit Crab had grown. Soon he would have to find another, bigger home. But he had come to love his friends, the sea anemone, the starfish, the coral, the sea urchin, the snail, the lanternfish, and even the smooth pebbles. They've been so good to me, thought Hermit Crab. They're like my family. How can I ever leave them? And there's the happy family. Hermit, you can see he's sticking outside of his shell, and his shell is starting to be too small. And he's starting to be worried about leaving his friends. In December, a smaller hermit crab passed by. I have outgrown my shell, she said. Would you know a place for me to stay? I've outgrown my shell too, answered Hermit Crab. I must move on. You are welcome to live here, but you must promise to be good to my friends. So now, Hermit, although he's sad to leave his friends, he's happy to share with someone else who needs a home. I promise to be good to your friends, said the little crab. There's Hermit in his beautiful shell with his friends, and here's the new crab looking for a home. She's outgrown her smaller shell. The following January, Hermit Crab stepped out, and the little crab moved in. Couldn't stay in that shell forever, said Hermit Crab as he waved goodbye. The ocean floor looked wider than he had remembered, but Hermit Crab wasn't afraid this time. Soon he spied the perfect house, a big, empty shell. It looked, well, a little plain, but sponges, he thought. Barnacles, clownfish, sand dollars, electric eels. Oh, there's so many possibilities. I can't wait to get started. So instead of being afraid to find a new home, this time he's excited because he knows he can make it beautiful, he can make it safe, and he can make new friends. Let's read about some of the friends or the sea creatures that Hermit made in this book. Sea anemones might look like flowers, but they are soft animals. They don't have bony skeletons. They come in many shapes and colors. With their many arms or tentacles, they catch their prey. Some specialize in attaching themselves to the shell of the hermit crab. Then they protect and camouflage or hide the hermit crab, and in turn, they share the hermit crab's food. This arrangement is called symbiosis, meaning both animals are helped by each other. So symbiosis is when two different creatures live together and help each other or share with each other, like Hermit and the sea anemone. The sea anemone helped to hide Hermit from his enemies or his predators, and Hermit shared his food with the sea anemone. Starfish. There are many kinds of starfish. Most of them have 5 arms growing from a central disc. So a central disc is like a circle or an oval, and 5 arms coming out from it. The mouth of the starfish is on the bottom side of the disc, or underneath the body of the starfish. And it has 1 eye at the end of each arm. Can you imagine if we had our eyes at the end of our arms? And if we had 5 eyes and 5 arms? Well, that's the starfish. With its powerful arms, it can open an oyster or hold on to a rock during a storm when the waves lash about. Corals are somewhat similar or almost the same as sea anemones. They're tall and they're soft on the inside, but they build a hard shell around them, or a hard skeleton. The sea anemones swing back and forth because they don't have that hard shell. But coral has the soft part on the inside and the hard, beautiful shell on the outside, all different colors. Some look like branches, others are round and disc-like. Millions upon millions grow together to make miles of long coral reefs or hard coral hills where the corals have joined together. Snails. Now you'll remember the snail helped Hermit clean his house. There's about 80,000 different species or kinds of snails and slugs. Some of them live on land and others live in sea or in the lake. Some carry their shell like hermit on their backs, but others don't have shells. So not all snails have shell houses. The ones that do come in many different colors and shapes, their shells. Two more friends that Hermit made. One, sea urchins. Remember the sea urchins with the spiky spines coming out of them? Some of them are fat and round, and others are thin and spindly. Many have long spines. Sometimes the spines are poisonous, with which they move about, so the spines help them to move. They dig into the mud or rocks or other places. Their mouths, with 5 pointed teeth, are on the underneath. Just like the starfish's mouth is on the underneath, the sea urchin's mouth is on the underneath as well, and they have 5 teeth. And the last friend that Hermit found was the lanternfish. And they're kind of like fireflies because they have their own light. They're light producing spots on their bodies that light up in the dark surroundings deep underneath the water. Some lanternfish have a lantern that dangles in front of their mouths. And the lantern not only lights their way, but it also attracts other fish that they can eat. So we learned some important lessons from Hermit today. We learned about how we all have different abilities or gifts, things that we're good at from God, and we should share them with other people to help our friends, to help our family. And we also learned that we need to work together in a family. So that's our story for today, and I hope you enjoyed it and also learned a few lessons from Hermit.